All right, welcome back to our DIY dog training. In this video, we're going to get started on something that is a major critical part of formal gun dog training. This, of course, is a process that we call force fetch, and I am going to walk you through this process. This is the really the by far the lion's share of what we're going to see in part 4 is a step-by-step process of how to force fetch your dog. Now, before we get into that, this video is going to have, I apologize, a fair amount of instruction before I actually do our first lesson. First off, I want to clarify that I'm going to be doing these videos in this session, and I will try very hard to always shoot each step before Aries has actually done it. So some of the videos that we've shot before this, Aries had already done some of those things, and I was kind of walking you through them quickly. In this video, I'm going to try to show you it as it happens. So it will, you'll see him make mistakes. You will see him struggle, I'm sure, and we'll talk about how we address those mistakes and struggles. So I will also want to say that force fetch is by far the number one thing that I am asked to do for outside dogs, and I would imagine that virtually every retriever trainer and every gun dog trainer would tell you the same thing. That this process is often perceived as difficult or time consuming. And the all reality is it's neither. It is not a difficult or time consuming process. It is one that requires a substantial amount of patience. And the most important part of this, other than patience, is the ability to read your dog. All right. So what I mean by reading your dog, Aries, here, is when we see a dog that looks like Aries, he's happy, he's comfortable, his tail's wagging. This is a dog who feels good. All right. And so when we're reading our dog, we're looking at things like what is his tail position, what is his head, what is his shoulders, what is he doing? He is communicating with us through body language. And we have to learn to communicate that way. That is how the dog communicates with us, is body language. We are going to communicate to the dog largely through the use of pressure. Now, force fetch is often a very poorly understood concept. Much like the e-collar, there can be kind of some misconceptions about how we use this and what it does and what it does not do. Force fetch does two super important things that are essentials for future gun dog training. This is like the major foundation piece. Thing number one it does is it will teach him to deliver to hand without dropping. He will deliver whatever object we tell, he should deliver that to us and pick it up on command and deliver it to us. Okay, so we're going to take the retrieving process, break it down into individual steps, and he is going to deliver to hand properly. And what we mean by that is we want to see the dog come to us, come into the heel position, hold the object until we are ready to take it from him, and give him a command to let go of it. Right now, the other critical important thing that this is going to do is it is going to teach him how to respond to pressure formally. Now, we've introduced that a little bit in part 3. We talked about the e-collar, and even in part 2, we introduced the concept of pressure through the leash. Right? So he's experienced a little bit of pressure. We've introduced this idea of pressure all throughout his life, but now we're going to really formalize it through the force fetch process. Right? And what we're going to see is that this process is going to go on to the obedience commands that we're going to do here are going to be how we're going to do what we call yard work, which will ultimately lead to the ability to do blind retrieves. Now, this whole process is a little bit timely. What I mean by that, there are two things you need to consider time-wise. One, you need to consider that your dog must have all of his adult teeth. In the Labrador Retriever, this happens around 6.5 to 7 months old. So if you have a dog that is 4, 5, 6 months old and teething, we do not recommend this process because you do not want to have discomfort associated with his mouth. If he's teething, his mouth is sore, very often at that stage, 4, 5, 6 months, you'll see dogs dropping objects, chewing on objects, just being really mouthy. That's usually because they are teething. And by around 7 months is the place where we do force fetch. So you need to consider that. Also, you need to remember that throughout this process, you should have been doing each of the sections should have been done before getting here. So at this point, the dog should have been exposed to the e-collar. He should have been exposed to hear, heel, sit with a leash. He should have been exposed to retrieving. He should have been exposed to gunfire, to kennel. All those things are part of what built up to this point. Now, if you're coming to this video series to watch how to force fetch your dog, great, that's awesome. But we are working under the assumption that your dog has an obedience foundation, that your dog is well socialized, and most importantly, you have a relationship with the dog. You do not want to take this process and just jump right into applying pressure to the dog. Many dogs will not like that. They will not respond well to you if you just, hi, how you doing? And we're going to force fetch you. You need some time to be buddies, to have a relationship so that this goes well. So there's a whole lot of pieces to keep in mind. Aries is being entertaining here. Now, what I'm going to do in our first video here, and I've been blabbing for 6 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep this pretty short and sweet. We're going to review, first off, the things that Aries already knows. Aries already knows hear, heel, sit. Okay, so we're going to do some of that. We're going to go back to the things that he knows, back to the old familiar mat here. Sit, good boy. Heel, good. Here, sit. We want him to sit in front, good. Heel, and sit in the heel position. Good boy. Okay, so we could repeat this several times, all right? Get him in the groove, okay? We want him thinking, okay, we're doing our steps here. Now, I'm actually going to bring the camera over here so that you can see this next part a little bit closer, because it will help if you can see with a little more detail what we got going on. We'll tip down a little bit so we can see this better, okay? Now, like I said, this is completely the first time Aries has done this, okay? Now, also, I should emphasize that while we are doing this process, there are many different methods of force fetching. This is only one method, and it is the method that I use. And I am going to be doing this entirely on the ground. Now, many gun dog trainers for many years have force fetched dogs on a bench. Put them up on a table, platform, tailgate, whatever. If you are someone who has back problems, or if you are doing a lot of dogs, using a bench is probably a better idea because it's more comfortable for you. However, anytime you transition from a bench down to the ground, the dog will have to relearn some of the stuff, almost always. So I do this on the ground simply to speed it up, to reduce the number of steps here so that we don't have to reteach anything. Now, what I'm doing with Aries while I'm talking here is I'm messing with him, and I'm doing this on purpose. I'm not just playing. I'm messing with his face because this is kind of an odd sensation. I'm messing with his snout, his muzzle, his lips, just messing with him like this, just to get him used to my hands being up near his face. This is going to be an unusual sensation because what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach Aries the command. I'm going to introduce this command to drop something, to let go. Obviously, if he needs to let go of something, we have to first get something in his mouth. Now, what I am going to put in his mouth is my right hand. Okay, so I am going to stick my hand in his mouth until he stops resisting me. Every dog I have ever done this on will freak out the first time you cram your hand in their mouth. It is a weird sensation for them. Okay, so you want to give them a little bit of, give them a second to get used to the idea. My hands are going to be all over your face, bud. And it's weird, okay? Now, I am doing this barehanded. Some people prefer to have a glove. If you have like a leather glove, if you have a dog that thrashes a bunch, like really just flails, it's not a bad idea to use a leather glove because they may accidentally scratch your hand. Virtually never Do I have a dog actually bite and chomp? I've never had a dog legit bite me while we were doing this. I have had dogs squeeze my hand pretty hard and use a glove. So you just kind of have to see how it goes. I like doing it barehanded because it gives me more control. I can feel better. Now, what I want to do when I put my hand in his mouth is I want to put it in there in a way that does not cause discomfort. Okay, so I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to have my hand down and I'm going to grab the sides of his lower jaw. He's actually kind of messing with my hand over here. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to let him mess. That's fine. I didn't script that. He just did that. All right, so I'm going to grab his lower jaw. But the trick is you want to hold on to it, but you don't want to squeeze to cause pain. Now, the trick is you need to keep your hand in his mouth until he stops resisting. All right. So let's see how this goes, and we'll talk about the steps, what we use. Okay, over here. Heel. Heel. Good. Heel. Good. Sit. And we do want him in the sitting position. Good. I'm going to take my left hand. I'm going to hold his collar with my left hand. So having a flat collar on the dog is a very good idea. If you want to, if you put the dog on a bench, usually you have them tied with a cable tie so they can't move. Okay, so I'm going to take my right hand. I'm just going to slip it in his mouth right here, and we'll let him resist for a minute. Notice the tail. See how his tail is still flipping? That tells me he's not in discomfort. He's not upset. We're doing just fine here. And he's actually not resisting that much. Good. Good boy. And as soon as he stops this next time and quits wiggling, he's still kind of moving there. Give. Good boy. As soon as he stops wiggling around, we say the give command. Some people like dead, drop, hand it to me, thank you. Whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter. I use the word give, and I kind of say it in a weird way. I kind of say it in a high-pitched, like, different way so that he knows, oh, that's weird. That's different, okay? We want him to know this is a command to give, that is a new command I am introducing, okay? Let's try it again. Left hand on the collar, right hand. By the way, I'm sliding my thumb in first, right, to get between his teeth. Good. And again, I'm just holding it in there. I'm moving my arm to kind of move with him. Good boy. Okay, good. We can say soothing things here. It's okay. It's all right. There we go. There's some good wiggles. That's okay. Give. Right there, he quit wiggling, quit resisting. So we give the give command, okay? Now, he's doing a couple of things here that are important to note. One, he's leaning on me, okay? A dog, very often your dog is going to lean on you, okay? That is because he is seeking some reassurance, because this is weird, right? Now, what we don't want to see the dog on the ground, rolling on their back. We don't want to see them tucking their tail. We don't want to see them clearly upset or scared, okay? Now remember, the dog is going to be very much cueing off of your body language, your tone of voice. So if you're angry, like, hold my hand, you, okay, the dog is going to sense that. Remember, dogs have like millennia of years bred into them of reading us. They read us, our language, like a book. And that's something to think about. If if you need to force fetch your dog and it's been, a bad day at the office or you're not in a good mood, man, just maybe take that day off. Like if you go into this with thinking, I'm going to get upset with this dog, give him a day off. It's okay. You can take days off with this process all the time. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, I'm not in the right spot. Today is not the time. We'll come back to this tomorrow. That is perfectly okay. So you got to remember to be in the right frame of mind here. So let's do one more. Put my hand in his mouth. Good. give. Notice how little he resisted that time, okay? So he just learned he's gonna have to stop resisting me in order to get the hand out of his mouth, right? So that gives you a good start on what force fetch looks like. This is, again, like I said, this is one major piece, and this is one technique for that training. There's lots of other series out there on force fetching dogs. This is simply the technique we use here at Three Ring Kennels. We've had a lot of success with it. We feel like it is good for a lot of dogs, and it's been good for us. But that's how you get started with force fetch.